So we're going to go back and we're going to look at his top 5 picks and our opinions from his previous 3 draft classes.
Sounds good to me. And when I was going through these picks, it was, I think 5 was easy, but if you were to say for me to do like 6 or 7,
Mm,
it would get a bit difficult because honestly, Tucker, it wasn't very encouraging looking at these.
no.
Because I go, if that's the best player they've gotten in the last 3 years, they need to do better. That was at least my overall takeaway, but I think he's done well in drafting role players, and that's
Mhm.
mainly what the list is.
It is a lot of role players, but so let's go ahead and start off, Connor, with your number 5. We're gonna work in backwards reverse order, so we gotta make them listen all the way through. That's the
This is a
goal
good
here.
one. This is
hmm
a good one.
So number 5, who do you have, Connor?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is my number 5.
Oh, okay.
Um, there's a theme on my list. You'll see it with my next pick too. I value a player who's done it for more than a year,
Mhm.
performed well at least. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has only played a year, and I was high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of college, and it was a bit below what I was expecting, mainly because he wasn't involved in the passing game. For some inexplicable reason, as much as I thought he would. I thought it'd be close to a 75 catch guy, but he was a 36 catch guy. And he did miss a few games, but that would still be around 40, 45 catches. So I think there's a lot of work to do for him still. And the Chiefs, of course, they're trying to improve their run blocking on offensive line. Hard for him to do much when you have the worst run blocking offensive line in the league. So I'm hoping to see year 2 strides from him. I'm expecting it because he was a younger player. He was 21. So yeah, as he gets acclimated, as he learns the NFL, he didn't have an off season last year to learn the playbook or play with the Chiefs in training camp. So I'm expecting a big year 2 from him. But for right now, he's number 5.
I think it's all fair. Jordan Foote actually shared a tweet with me that I thought was really interesting about how running backs miss an average of 2.7 games a season at the position. And so that kind of just goes back to the value of the running back position, drafting him so high. We could have that conversation until we're blue in the face. People won't change their sides on that. So I'm just kind of done having that conversation with people about it. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's Brett Veach's first ever first round selection. Because if you
Yeah.
look back at the drafts, he didn't have one in 2018, 2019. He is on my list. I went back and forth if I wanted to throw him on there or not. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I don't. Maybe there are 5 other players better
But
than
he's
him.
not your number 5.
He's not my number 5 because my number 5 is Nick Allegretti. I think as a
Uh,
7th round pick at 216, his ability to come in and step in for the Chiefs uh, was much needed, obviously, because the Chiefs
he
really
was a
battled the
7th
game.
round pick?
7th round pick, 216.
I
Um,
thought he was 6. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Even
So,
better.
yes, you can't ask more from a 7th round pick, really, to come in and
Not
be
really.
a solid contributor on the offensive line. Now, he did have some moments where he looked like a 7th round pick. I think that that's probably fair, but there were also moments where you didn't notice him on the offensive line. And I think that as an offensive lineman, that's really big to not be noticed, to not have your
Right.
name called out. So, Nick Allegretti kind of gets my nod at number 5 there. And number 4, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's where I have him at. Look, I mean, he has 181 attempts, 803 yards, 4 touchdowns, 36 receptions, 297 yards, 1 touchdown. You just touched about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You would have liked to see him more in the passing game. So would I. I think he gets moved up higher if he was a 2nd round pick. If he was around there at number 2, but just for me, with the value of him being the 1st round pick, I originally didn't have him on my list, to be honest with you, just because the value of it, I wasn't huge on it. But you can't deny the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire did struggle in the rushing game later on in the year because the offensive line was such a bad running offensive line. And I think that that has something to do with it. As the Chiefs get better on the offensive line and it becomes a better rushing offensive line with a better passing offensive line, you're going to see that pick kind of pan out a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, I think I didn't have going back to Allegretti. I don't even have him on the list. I think he would be 6th though for me.
Mhm.
He's just off it. Mainly because of the value, like you said. You usually don't get returns on a 7th round pick at all.
Right.
So getting somebody, I at least am confident in Allegretti being a backup guard going
Hmm.
forward. I think people saying he could play center, he could be the starter. It's a bit much for me, but he's a good 6 man up on the inside. Um, they don't need him to be that right now, but he could be if they want him to be in the future. So I think that's a good pick there. And for Clyde, I think we said it there. The value, the value is not great. At least they did it at 32.
Yeah, at least it was 32, which essentially is a second round pick at that point. It's the very last pick of the first
Yeah.
round, but still a first round pick. So, Connor, give me your number 3.
My number 3 is Juan Thornhill. Um,
Ooh.
I was really high on the pick when it happened. I loved Juan. All the tools you want from a safety. He had some crazy combine numbers, and he had a great rookie year. I was looking forward to his year 2 already at the end of year 1 because I'm like, there's a lot of room to grow here. And then he tore his ACL. So this is a bit of a projection because his was mostly a year 2, and his 2020 is just he didn't play up to his rookie year, but even Tyrann Mathieu commented on how he was still recovering from his ACL injury, and he knew how it was because he tore his ACL before as well. So I think he's going to come into year 3. He's going to feel fully healthy finally coming off that ACL tear. He's going to play great. I'm expecting big things from him. And the value is pretty good there. It was the end of 2nd round. I think they got a starting free safety from that,
Hmm.
which I consider it's not a premium position. It's like a middling premium for kind of the defense and the team as a whole. And it's valuable in a league that values passing. So
Right.
the value is there. The player I liked, and he's played well when he's fully healthy. So I liked Juan, and he's my number 3.
I realized I might have forgot to ask you what your number 4 was.
Oh, right. I was like, wait, 3? Oh yeah, I'll go into that. But 4 is L'Jarius Sneed.
Oh, okay.
People might think that's low, but I've said this on the podcast before. He only played 33% of the snaps for the Chiefs defense last year.
Hmm.
Um, and his playoffs, I wouldn't say were great. He had the good blitzing off the slot, but coverage wise, he definitely regressed a bit from the regular season, but he also played better teams. So it's like, who knows? And he's also a rookie.
Yeah.
But when he only plays that little and he's a rookie, you just kind of go, I want to see him do it more before I call this a slam dunk pick. If he comes in next year, he plays awesome. He's a starting outside cornerback for the Chiefs. It's definitely Brett Veach's best pick of the last 3 years, but he hasn't done that yet. So right now, he's 4 with Juan Thornhill above him and 2 more above that.
So I will just give my wait. I did 5 and 4. Okay, so I'll just give my
And
3. I
yeah,
had one Thornhill at 3 as well. We're on the same page there with the middling value, the way he was able to contribute. Pick number 63. The Chiefs is the 3rd year the Chiefs have picked number 63, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. I mentioned that on I believe yesterday's podcast. There's been some weird like pick numbers that the Chiefs have had that just keep reoccurring, and I don't know if you believe in superstition or anything like that, or I don't know. I think it's all just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And I think it's a very odd coincidence that they have 63 for 3 straight years. But
there's a reason for the draft picks not like they wouldn't have the last one last year.
mhm,
I forgot what the reason was. I think it's something to do with like similar records alternate picks after the first round, like pick orders. So
oh
it's
wow,
something weird like that. So that's kind of why they had that pick, I believe.
huh.
Don't quote me on it. Oh, actually, no, it was the D4 trade, wasn't it?
Um,
Yeah, it was the
well,
D4 trade because they beat the 49ers in the
yes,
Super Bowl and they picked second to last.
that is true. Um, yeah, yep.
That
I
was why.
have over here on this side. I've got the whole draft on Pro Football Reference, the
There
all-time
is
draft.
there is a rule about alternating picks, but I think it's for teams that tied in record, um, who didn't make the playoffs. If they
Right.
tied in record, they actually alternate draft orders. I believe that is a rule.
There's so many rules to follow.
There
Just
is a
break them
lot of
all.
rules.
Um, but so you're at number 2 now. So right, because
I
we've
think we have the
given
same top 2.
I don't we don't. You've already said one of my top 2.
Oh, Jarius. Okay.
Well, yeah. Um, So give me your number two.
My number two is we've considered ourselves a fan club for this player. It is Rashad Fenton.
Mhm.
Mainly because you talked about value with Allegretti. Fenton has returned more value on his sixth round pick just because he's played better. He's an actual starting NFL caliber cornerback. You wouldn't want him to be your number one, maybe even number two, but he's at least a slot guy for sure. And we went over, I think it was last Thursday's or last Friday's podcast with Jordan about how he had the second best passer rating when targeted on the Chiefs team last year. He played 50% of the snaps. I did not think it was that high. He's done that for 2 years now. He had a good playoff run in 2019. There's a lot to like with him. He's provided a lot to the Chiefs for his draft position. So I think for finding a player like that, that's probably one of Veach's best picks so far as a Chiefs GM.
That's who I have at number two. So I guess you know who my number one is then. But at number two, I have Rashad Fenton, just because, as you mentioned, as a sixth-round pick to come in and do what he's done is a really good return on investment.
Right.
That's kind of what I had written down too. Just like a really very solid, really reliable, constant contributor when he is called upon. Because there's times where you don't need Rashad Fenton, right? There's times where you have everything figured out, you don't need Rashad Fenton, and then when he comes in, Rashad Fenton's there and he fills that hole just fine. And I think that that's really what you want from a sixth-round pick.
What's your list so far, Tucker? Before we
So I
hit number
have,
one?
I have Nick Allegretti at number five. At number four, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I called an audible. You want to know who I did have at number four, and I decided to change?
Yeah, don't say it because I think it might be my player.
Okay, sounds good. Number three, I had Juan Thornhill. Number two, I had Rashad Fenton. Looking at your list here, you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You have
Mhm.
L'Jarius Sneed, Juan Thornhill, Rashad Fenton, and your number one is.
My number one isn't even on your list. It is Derek Nottie.
Yeah.
Derek Nottie, the one player from the 2018 draft that is good, is my number one because he is possibly the best 0/1 tech nose tackle in the league. He is asked to do a ton in Steve Spagnuolo's system. He's asked to cover two gaps at once on that defensive line. He's the only reason, mainly the only reason that the run defense looks as good as it looks sometimes. Usually when they are when the game is close, they clamp down. And Derek Nottie is a big reason for that. If the Chiefs did not have Derek Nottie, we'd be looking at an all-time bad passing defense. Or rushing defense. It's entirely possible. He is the only good player, like I said, from the Chiefs 2018 draft. He's the highest graded player on PFF out of all the rookies that Brett Veach has drafted. He's done it for 3 years now. There's a lot to like about that pick, and it's sad that it's sandwiched around already busts. Right. So Derek Nottie is my number one.
So that's who I bumped on my list. I had Derek Nottie at number four. Yeah. So you called it. And the thing with Derek Nottie is I go back and forth. What's really crazy about Derek Nottie is he's played more snaps than the rest of the 2018 class combined has played for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's still like 200 more than the rest of the class combined. It's like not close. And Derek Nottie is good. Like I think that sometimes, like you're right, he gets kind of thrown in with that 2018 draft class. He gets lumped in there, and that 2018 draft class was bad. It was catastrophic. It's Breland Speaks, Derek Nottie, Dorian O'Daniel, Armani Watts, Tremont Smith, Khalil McKenzie. What, 3 of those guys are still on the team with Watts, Dorian O'Daniel, and Nottie.
Yeah.
Khalil McKenzie's probably bagging groceries somewhere. Tremont Smith is still in the league with the Houston Texans, I believe. Breland Speaks, did he sign with the team at the end of last year?
He might be on a practice squad. I have no clue.
Yeah, I think he signed like a futures deal.
That was a second round pick.
Yeah. Not only was it a second round pick, it was a traded up for second round pick. That was pick number 46 in that draft. Luckily, Brett Veach has gotten a little bit better since then because that'll be important. My number one is L'Jarius Sneed. You guys know here that we are big L'Jarius Sneed podcast. Well, I think you are high on L'Jarius Sneed, even though you don't have him on number one on your list.
I am.
L'Jarius Sneed. I don't want people to misconstrue that. Connor still likes L'Jarius Sneed. We have a
Do
need
they
for
not like
Sneed.
Thornhill, Fenton, and Noddy too? It's like,
Listen, also, if you look at those guys, a lot of good defensive players taken.
yeah.
A lot of good rotational depth, solid contributors, not necessarily superstars, but not bust. And I think that's really what you're going to need in the 2021 draft come around here. You will need a couple superstars, right? Once Patrick Mahomes gets into
Yeah, I
that
would
thick of
like to
that
see him draft
contract,
one or two.
you would like to see him make some moves to get up high in that draft, get some Pro Bowl projected players. But as of now, at the 2020 draft, I think that if we just get through this 2021 draft and we're looking at these guys, we're looking at this class and say, okay, this looks like a lot of depth guys for year one, but guys that can contribute. I think that's a perfect spot to be in.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm a bit worrisome or worrying about is the Chiefs have been predicated and been playing at a high level because of Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes.
Right.
Kelsey and Hill are getting on the older side now. Kelsey's in his 30s, Hill's 27 now. They need to make sure they can get new young weapons for Patrick Mahomes to throw to. And you saw they were trying to get somebody like Josh Reynolds, Juju. Reports they're still interested in a wide receiver. So I think they know that. It's just the last wide receiver Brett Veach drafted was McCole Hardman, and hasn't worked out in 2 years yet. And there's a lot of, I would say, gusto from McCole about this upcoming year and how he will show out in year 3. But I will say I'll believe it when I see it. And I would like to see it. I'm not cheering against him. But if we don't see it from him, the Chiefs need some young bodies at their skill positions. And it needs to be sooner rather than later. It doesn't have to be this year. I would like it to be this year just because they have a need at wide receiver. But looking back at these 3 drafts, they can't have any more 2018s. And they probably need the best draft from Brett Veach in his career sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I agree with you. I couldn't have said it better myself, but I tried to say it better on Arrowhead Report as I wrote a column kind of detailing what Brett Veach has done, what kind of needs to happen, kind of looking at all that going on here. And Brett Veach will finally have a first round pick, hopefully. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, that he's going to have another first round pick to deal with. He could trade back. It wouldn't surprise me. Could trade up.
You could trade up.
Dude's never traded back in his career. So
Yeah.
that's a fact. So
I believe, you know what's interesting? There's another GM that's never traded back. I saw this, and he's been around much longer than Brett Veach.
Who's that?
I don't think people will like the comparison, but he has been around longer. Dave Gettleman has never traded back in his his career.
He's been around the block too.
He's been around the block. I don't know if it was full drafts or just first round. I believe it was full drafts. Which is the same for Veach. He's never traded back. He's traded up 5 times. So people were talking about if the Giants would trade out of 11. People go, yeah, Dave Gettleman's never even traded back. So Veach isn't alone, at least in his avoidance of trading back.
Right. I think it's kind of, I don't want to say it's great company to be in because Dave Gettleman's not a very decorated general manager, but it's something. It's easy.
He's not the only one.
Right, he's not the only one. So I guess he has company at least. May not be good company, but he has company. So Connor, appreciate you joining me on today's show. Got any final thoughts?
As we're watching the draft get closer and closer, I do have some thoughts about, I have evolving thoughts about what the Chiefs should do. And I think seeing what Brett Veach will do in a season and in a draft that's going to be different than his last 3 will at least be interesting to watch and will inform us more about what he'll do in the future. So I'm not going to hold 2018 against him forever. I just hope, he has a good draft this year.
I'm right there with you. Before I wrap up the show, just to recap our list, Connor, you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 5, Sneed at 4, Juan Thornhill at 3, Rashad Fenton at 2, Derek Nottie at 1. My list is Nick Allegretti at 5, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 4, Juan Thornhill Juan Thornhill tried to go soft T on that one. Juan Thornhill at 3, Rashad Fitton at 2, and L'Jarius Sneed at 1. Make sure you go follow Connor on Twitter at Connor_DKC. Go follow me on Twitter as well at Tucker D. Franklin to stay up to date with the show. Tomorrow I'll be back with Jordan Foote. We're going to be doing mock draft 10.0. We only have 10.0, 11.0, 12.0 left before the draft. So that means we only have 3 mock drafts left until the full thing's here. I'm ready for it.
I am too. And that 12.01 is going to be like what, the day before the draft?
Yes, day before the draft.
You should that one has to be the final official one.
We'll joke around and we'll do like, the scenarios for these next couple ones.
Do you want to do a trio mock draft for the official one?
You know what?
Not to throw you on the spot.
That's not a terrible idea, though. There's going to be a lot of maneuvering I'll have to do video editing wise, but I think we can make it happen. I think that we can do something with that, but you'll have to find out if we do. So you'll have to follow me on Twitter at Tucker D Franklin. I forgot my Twitter handle there for a second, but follow me on Twitter at Tucker D Franklin. Stay up to date with the show. Like I said, Jordan back tomorrow. That's mock draft 10.0. Still got a few more before the NFL draft, but until then, I'll talk to you tomorrow.